Brazil is the only country in the world that consumes everything it produces in terms of cacao, and they actually have to import cacao because they consume so much. Brazil has 6 biomes, and I decided that I wanted a bar to represent each biome. And so that's when I decided to use the fauna and the flora that grows around Brazil as the example of the packaging. And so every bar that I have, you will have some kind of plant or pattern from a plant or nature. And so it's about showcasing the nature of Brazil.
Hello and welcome to Brazil is Not for Beginners. Today we have another video episode for you. I'm here in Brooklyn and Sao Paulo at Mission Chocolate with Arcelia Gallardo. She is the founder and CEO of Mission Chocolate, award-winning chocolate. And we're going to talk about the chocolate industry and about making chocolate. Arcelia, thanks so much for joining me today.
Of course.
Yes, well, I am excited to talk about a few things. So one, to learn about making chocolate, learn about chocolate in Brazil. I think I've talked about this before. We've talked about it, kind of my fascination with Brazilian taste profile and oversweet and weird things. I'm adapting to it still, but getting to know it. So understanding Brazilian chocolate, and then I want to talk about running a small business, which you obviously have here. You make a great product, and I'm really excited to share it with our audience.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot to share.
Awesome. So before we dive into chocolate, you're American, living in Brazil with a small business chocolate company. Can you tell us a little bit how you got here, a little bit about your background? So I think that's 3 questions. 1, how did you end up in Brazil? How did you discover chocolate? And how did you start a chocolate business?
Yeah, so I started working with chocolate in 2002. I was working at the culinary school in Los Angeles, and I was working in the marketing department. And I went to a normal college where I was going to do normal things, right? I really wanted to get into media and marketing.
Okay.
But I started looking for a job right when 9/11 happened. And so there was a hiring freeze, nobody was hiring. Eventually I was able to find a job at a culinary school doing marketing, which was great, right? Yeah. And so I was there for 6 years, and in those 6 years, I just fell in love with the food industry, with the culinary world. And there was this one particular chef that I befriended, and his job was to teach the chocolate at the culinary school. And so hanging out with him, I learned a few things about chocolate, and I decided to pick up a book on chocolate, because when you are a kid, nobody ever says, I'm going to be a chocolate maker when I grow up. That's not a thing.
Want to say,
that's not even
chocolate.
Yeah.
They ask for it constantly.
It's not a real job. It's not a career. It's like a fantasy thing, right? And so I would make chocolate on the weekends just for fun, truffles, bonbons. And then my friends started asking for them, and so then I needed to get better equipment, molds. And then finally I decided, I think this is what I want to do. I actually want to be in a kitchen, and I want to work with chocolate. But there was also like the historical aspect of it, like hanging out with my chef friend who was from El Salvador. He would tell me, like, you know, chocolate actually belongs to the Maya and the Aztec and the Inca, and like all the indigenous groups in Latin America were working with cacao thousands of years before it got to Europe. And so to me, that fascinated me. My minor in college was Latin American literature. And so I had read...
That's a whole other thing you and I can talk about, because I also really love Latin American literature.
And
but anyway.
So they would come up, like one of the classes that I took was about all the letters written by Hernan Cortez back to Spain. And in that he mentioned cacao. And so for me, it was kind of like something that was planted in my brain, but never paid any attention to it. So then when I got to the culinary school, it really just, for me, linked like what I was studying, which really was like marketing and media and business, and the history of Latin America. And so it was, for me, a natural place to go was for chocolate.
Very cool.
And so I decided to get into it full time. I stopped working at the culinary school. I opened a store in Berkeley, California, called Casa de Chocolates, which still exists. And the whole focus was to teach the history of chocolate through chocolate itself. And so I was going to make a chocolate bar, maybe with chili flakes and pumpkin seeds. And then people would be like, why this combination? And so then it would opened the door for me to tell you the history of Latin America food, which one of them is pumpkin and spices and chilies. The focus was not just to make good chocolate. The focus was to make customers ask me questions about why I chose these flavors and why this food and why these molds. And so we had molds that were in the shape of the Maya calendar and the Aztec calendar. And so it was a way for me to teach the people the real history of chocolate and have them experience chocolate in a different form. So when everyone thinks about chocolate, they think about Switzerland, they think about Belgium, they think about France. Nobody thinks about Guatemala, right? Nobody. And actually, like the most relics that we have found historically with the use of cacao have been in that region. Yeah. And so that means that they have been using cacao, and they still do today, for like 5,000 years, right? Cacao arrives in Europe maybe a few hundred years ago. Yeah. And so it is such a new product, a new food in the old world, but we don't really credit it right to Mesoamerica. And so for me, that kind of became my task. It was like, how can I really teach people about the history of chocolate, the real history of chocolate, without being annoying, like without being like, you need to know this, right? You don't need to know anything. It's more like, how can I get you interested in asking me about why this? And so that's really how it started, and what I decided to create while I was still living in California. Mm-hmm. And then came the point where I was really curious about where chocolate was growing, right? Because chocolate comes from a plant, and not too many people know that. Yes. And so I wanted to know, okay, where is this growing, and who are these communities? Who are these farmers? Who are these producers? Are we actually paying them, what it really is worth to them? Yes, no. And so then that became a whole nother thing. And so then I started thinking, well, I really want to work more in an area where there's cacao. The U.S. Mainland doesn't really grow cacao. You can grow a tree or two, but there are no plantations. You can get cacao in Puerto Rico and in Hawaii, but because it's the U.S., there's really it's really expensive to grow cacao in these regions, right? And so really I had to go down south. I had to go somewhere where cacao grows, plentiful, but also where there was a really big chocolate culture. So those are two different things. Ecuador has a lot of cacao, but it doesn't have a really huge chocolate consuming culture. Interesting. Same with Ghana. Africa produces 60 to 70% of the world's cocoa, but they don't have a strong cacao consuming culture. So they export everything they produce. Brazil is the only country in the world that consumes everything it produces in terms of cacao, and they actually have to import cacao because they consume so much.
They do like their chocolate, which we will talk about.
Right. I decided to move to Brazil because it was a country where I could be near a cocoa producer, I can learn about cacao, but I can also sell a chocolate bar at the equivalent of like $6. And I can't do that anywhere else in the world where cacao grows.
Right. This is a higher end bar, bean to bar, which we'll talk about in a second as well, right?
Right. The culinary industry in Sao Paulo, specifically in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, is really advanced. And so Sao Paulo is really the only place where I can create a brand that was luxury based on cacao, and where there actually would be a market for me to sell it.
Big city with significant buying power, as I've talked about in some of my other episodes as well. So when was this? So you decided, I got the store. 2014. Yeah. Did you sell the store, or you left it with people you trusted?
Right. I sold my part, so now it belongs to somebody else. And I moved to Brazil, and I started Mission Chocolate.
Okay. And this was, how long was the process of thinking about this, if I can ask?
So the idea started as, I need to be closer to cocoa producers, but no real plan. Like I just wanted eventually to do this. And eventually the opportunity came up to move to Brazil, and I thought, this is it, like this is the sign. Like I didn't look for it, it came to me and I said, this is it, this is the sign. Like I need to move to Brazil. The plan was to be in Brazil 4 years, and I'm now on my 11th year of my 4-year plan.
Yeah,
and so,
they happen that way sometimes.
The idea was learning everything about cacao and chocolate in Brazil, moving back to California, opening my factory there, my chocolate museum, and living the rest of my life there. And so when I decided to move to Brazil, I knew that I wanted to start a different brand or a new brand because everything that I wanted to do was going to be under the business.
Right.
And so I started Mission Chocolate because when I decided to move to Brazil, I was living in the Mission District in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it was in the Mission District that I learned how to make chocolate. And it just sounded like a nice word to have as part of my company because really my idea for business has always been to teach and to educate. It's never been just to have profits. It's been like, how can I use this art form to teach people about something? And so really it was a mission, right? And the domain wasn't taken, the trademark wasn't taken, and so I became Mission Chocolate.
That's excellent. But you also care a lot about sustainable practices and things like, so you're an impact-focused company, I guess would be the best way to say it. So you have a mission behind you. So
Right.
I was going to ask about the name, but that's really cool.
Right. And I also went to college in Berkeley, California, which was the birth of like the slow food movement in the United States.
Okay.
And it was the birth of the locavore movement. So eat what grows around you. And so all of that has really shaped the way that the business functions now in Brazil. And so all of it again is a mission, right?
Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about, so you mentioned Brazil was appealing because it's got a big chocolate culture. Can you talk a little bit about this? I think anybody that's been to Brazil or been to a Brazilian party has probably had a brigadeiro, right? Like the common treat. You have these bonbons, right? Sonho de valsa, things like that. Like, what is the taste profile of Brazilian chocolate? Can you talk a little bit about that and what you were talking about with the culture of chocolate where everybody likes to buy it from the woman down the street?
Brazilians are really a product of history, right, when it comes to Brazil. So there's a really big sugarcane history with Brazil. And so there was a lot of sugar to be had. And so who doesn't like sugar in terms of like the palate, right? Like it's very nice for the brain, for the palate. And so they had plenty of sugar, and so they were able to use it as much as they wanted. And so that ended up creating Brazilian sweets that were too sweet. And so even there's a famous Simpson episode where Homer is in Brazil and he's drinking orange juice and he spits it out and he's just like, this is too sweet. Even sweet in Brazil is too sweet for normal people, right?
Yes.
So Brazilians do have a love affair with sweets, with making things sweeter than they should be. And so that actually helps me, right? As a chocolate maker, as a candy maker, it really does help me because Brazilians are addicted to this sort of thing. Culturally, after lunch, right? You have an espresso and a brigadeiro or a docinho, right? And you're good. So it's like a little docinho that's packed with sugar and flavor, but it's little, so that's okay, right? And then the second thing is, Brazil is a really huge exporting country. So that means that soy is exported, right? Sugar is exported, cacao is exported, coffee is exported, and like many upcoming,
developing countries.
Countries.
Upcoming, that's a nice way to say it.
They ship the best that they have, and they stay with the not so best.
Yeah, that came up when I was talking about coffee.
Right, same thing with coffee, because when you're a farmer, when you're a producer, you're not going to take your best lot and consume it and give it to the community, right? You're going to choose, you're going to consume whatever is left over and try to make it better. And so if with coffee, with cacao, I'm going to send the best to sell to the market, and then whatever is left over, I'm going to make it work for me to consume. And so usually that means I have to add a lot of sugar because I maybe am using cacao that is fermented incorrectly, that was dried incorrectly, that the companies won't buy, that they deny, maybe has a fungus, mold, like it's really the worst. You're just, as a producer, you're never going to take your best for yourself. You're going to keep
and so that's what
you
people
can't sell.
And that's what people got used to.
Both with coffee and with cacao, right?
Okay, interesting.
And so the other part of that is that Brazil really is new in producing chocolate. The role of Brazil and of mostly all the countries that grow cacao is not to make chocolate. It's to sell cacao to the countries that are famous for making chocolate. And so since the production of chocolate in large scale, it has been the role of every country that grows cacao. So that means anything that's around the equator.
Yeah.
So Brazil, Ecuador, Venezuela, Colombia,
Ghana, you mentioned,
Ghana, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Indonesia.
Yeah.
Their job is to produce cacao and send it to Europe and send it to Canada and send it to the United States. And then their job is to make chocolate. It's not the job of where cacao grows. And so it's been a new phenomenon now that, and I use Brazil as the example, now that Brazil has access to electricity, to roads, to refrigeration, now I can have chocolate making machines. That wasn't possible 50 years ago. Where cacao grows, it's in difficult conditions. It's a lot of rain, it's very humid, maybe there aren't good roads, it's poorer communities. And so they don't have the luxury of having an air-conditioned space to produce chocolate. Yeah. And if they did, who's going to buy it, right? Like, who's going to buy this chocolate? And so the easiest thing for them to have done historically is to import chocolate from Italy, right? So Italy buys cacao from Brazil, and then Italy makes it, sells it for, a markup back to Brazil.
Espresso. Buy the coffee beans, put George Clooney's face on it, send it back to Brazil, everybody pays a bunch for it.
Right, and so that historically has been the story of every country in the world that produces cacao, is we're sending the cacao out and we're gonna buy chocolate from them. So now that Brazilians are able to have electricity, YouTube, so they can go on to YouTube and see how chocolate is made, so now I can learn how to make chocolate. And I can now import the equipment because I have electricity and I have an air conditioner. And the roads are a little bit better so that I can get cacao in and chocolate out. And that really is a phenomenon of the last 30 years. And so 10 years ago when I moved to Brazil, and you asked any chef, you asked anyone in the food industry, you asked any Brazilian, what is the best chocolate in Brazil? They would tell you Belgian chocolate. Every single person would tell you Belgian chocolate. The menus in all the finest restaurants in Brazil would say, chocolate mousse, Belgian chocolate, or imported chocolate, right? That was elegant. That was delicious. That was worth, the price that you were going to pay for this. And so in the last 10 years, me and with other chocolate makers, we have been trying to change this, and we have. So we have successfully changed the face of chocolate in Brazil. Amazing. Whereas now you go to the best restaurants in São Paulo, and it will say, just
Mission
chocolate. It could say Mission Chocolate. It'll say local chocolate. It'll say national chocolate. So we've changed that. So now there has been like a shift where when you say now to people Belgian chocolate, it's now like, have you tried Mission Chocolate? Have you tried? Because now
that's awesome.
We have been now in the market for 10 years with other people, and we go to all the fairs, the festivals, the shows, like we're really trying to be out there. And so now they recognize that national chocolate is now better than the international chocolate.
Amazing. There's a little bit of, I think historically Brazilians undervalued things that were Brazilian. And they're starting to value things that are locally made now, right? So did you call them locavores? Okay, so I've never heard that term before. But so people are starting to value things that come from here, especially in Sao Paulo. People are more aware of, we have good production. We're sending it all abroad. Can we get some of that and do things here? But I'm also curious, you were saying before that, Brazilian chocolate, brigadeiro and things like that were over sweet. And so it's been nice for you as chocolate makers, you can make it sweet. But have you seen the palette for chocolate change in how you've and these other chocolate makers been producing? Are you moving more Brazilian over sweetening things, or are they moving towards maybe more traditional standards elsewhere where it's a little bit less sweet. I don't know. I'm just curious how that's changed in the 10 years that you've been working in this industry and what you've seen in terms of how people think about what is good chocolate.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, all of the training that farmers had received on how to process cacao, which means how to harvest, how to ferment, and how to dry, how to store cacao, was given by the big companies. And those big companies would go out to the farms and train all the farmers. And they were training them for quantity, not quality. Okay. Quality is not so important. I need a lot. I don't need a little bit of good. I need a lot of mediocre, perhaps. I mean, could be bad.
I imagine coffee was similar, right? So,
right.
Similar coffee.
And so when we started to make chocolate, I'm always including other chocolate makers because in the beginning, it was a group effort because I could not contact a farmer and say, can you do this differently and this and that and this and keep records of it? And
if it's just Arcelia.
And I'm gonna buy, one sack, which is like 60 kilos. They wouldn't even talk to me, right? And so I had to gather other chocolate makers and say, okay, look, we're gonna buy half a ton, or we're gonna buy a ton, but you need to do this. And so then they were interested. Yeah. And so when we started to ask for different cacao and making chocolate with different cacao, it started to change the way Brazilians saw dark chocolate as well. Okay. Because 20 years ago, dark chocolate in Brazil made with Brazilian cacao was horrible. Like there's no argument about that. It was horrible. Like you could make chocolate from any cacao. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. But the aromas, the flavors, they're gonna be pretty awful, right? Okay. And so we needed to work with farmers to have them produce a different sort of a cacao so that we can make a different sort of a chocolate. Okay. And so working with the farmers together in tandem, right? It was send me this batch, understand what you did with this batch. I'm gonna make a chocolate, 70% dark chocolate, and I'm gonna send it back to you. And I'm gonna teach you like that I can taste astringency in that chocolate. So that means you harvested green cacao, you didn't let it dry long enough. Okay. And so we could tell them like, look, can you taste this? What you're tasting is mold. So that means that maybe it rained one day and you left the cacao out and then you kept trying to dry it, but the mold is still there. And so on and so forth. So this took maybe like 5 years of like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until we finally got it. So now you can have a dark chocolate and it's actually pleasant. Yeah. But this was not the case 20 years ago in Brazil. Okay. Right? And so the Brazilian's palate has been changing both because people are now wanting to have more healthier food. Yeah. But also because we've changed the way that cacao tastes in Brazil. Because before it was actually awful to have a dark chocolate, but now it's pleasant to have a dark chocolate. So there's that as well with the Brazilian palate, is that we've helped train Brazilians to understand that dark chocolate can be pleasant, but it has to come from good cacao. Right.
And starting with the farmers to understand how the activities that they're taking impact the outcome on the other end.
Right. It had to start with the farmers. We cannot make good chocolate with bad cacao. That's not a thing. It has to start with the good cacao. And that's the first thing, right? But having said that, when I started Mission Chocolate and I started making chocolate in Brazil, it was only dark chocolates. I didn't want to know anything about anything else because if you're a chocolate nerd, you're just about the terroir, the single estate, which exists, right? Making a chocolate bar from just one farm. Okay. The single variety, which is making chocolate with just one variety of cacao. Okay. So just like there's like a green apple, red apple, yellow apple, the same thing is with cacao. And you can make a different chocolate that tastes different with each variety. And so I was coming from that angle. I was like hardcore nerd. Right. And
make
like
very
the coffee,
specific
right?
types of chocolate.
Yes, so just like the coffee, I only drink, let's say pour-overs, only single estate pour-overs. Like this is a nerd, right? Yeah. That nerd is not interested in a frappuccino, right? You're gonna die. And so I was coming from that angle. But as I was going to street fairs or festivals, people were like, can you make a milk chocolate? And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, can you make a white chocolate? I cannot. Like, I'm here to teach you about cacao. And obviously that was a nuisance of me. And
Yeah.
when I let go of that and I said, okay, I'm going to make you a milk chocolate and I'm going to make you a white chocolate, but it's going to have to be something that's special, that doesn't exist, and that also brings us back to this education point of view.
Yeah.
And so the first milk chocolate that I made was pão de mel. And pão de mel is a milk chocolate with all the spices that you put in a traditional pão de mel are in this chocolate. And then the first white chocolate I made was arroz doce. And so same thing, just taking a recipe that Brazilians consume every day. It's not a big deal, but it's delicious.
Rice pudding,
It's a rice pudding, and I just put all the ingredients in a chocolate bar. And so then I thought, this is fun. Like, this is actually, I'm having more fun with the white and the milk chocolates than the dark chocolates. So the dark chocolates are really a way to teach people about cacao, right?
Okay.
But the milk and the white became a way for me to teach people about Brazilian culture.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so my white chocolates are, the rice pudding, the doce de leite, pamonha, which is like yellow corn.
Yeah.
For Easter, we had an acerola, right? So it's like white chocolate with red berry. And so it's a way for me to teach people about Brazilian culture. And with the milk chocolates, it's the same thing. They sell better than the dark chocolates. They absolutely do, because white and milks are really for like the family and kids and grandmas, right? The dark chocolate is really more for like a section of people, right? Kids generally don't like dark chocolate. And so I do both, but the sweeter ones sell better. In Brazil.
In Brazil.
In Brazil.
So we touched on a bunch of stuff that I find really interesting, and I want to get into that, the whole idea of playing with Brazilian culture and some of the things you've tried. I'm interested in some of the ones maybe that didn't work out as well. But I'm also not going to pretend for a second that I understand how chocolate is made. So can you walk us through that a little bit? And maybe, you talked about some of the, single estate chocolate and things. So from my understanding, that all fits within this idea of kind of a bean to bar, which is different from industrial chocolate. So we picked a cacao downstairs. You've got some models here. So can you walk us through the process kind of at like a high level of how this thing here becomes one of those?
Yeah. So chocolate starts with cacao, right? So this is a real cacao pod, and it's possibly the tiniest cacao pod you're ever going to see, because this is a variety that grows wild in the Amazon. So cacao is native to the Amazon rainforest before there were borders. So the Venezuelans say it's original to
Colombians, Ecuadorians,
Venezuela, whatever. The Colombians say it's original to them, but it's the Amazon rainforest. And this one has never been hybridized or bred, which is very common in farms that are owned by a family or a person. So this variety grows wild. Nobody has ever pruned it or done anything to it. So I had a friend that gave me some seeds and I planted it here.
Amazing.
So this is not productive, right? In terms of like, if I'm gonna have a farm and I'm a producer.
Not one of these big ones behind you, right?
Maybe I plant this, but when this grows into a tree, I'm gonna take this seed and then I'm gonna take a little piece of a tree from this one and I'm going to hybridize it, so that then I create one tree where it's going to be a mixture of this one and this one. So for profit, for an actually functioning farm, you want something ideally that's actually bigger.
Right.
And so this would be what I would consider a medium-sized cocoa pod. There are bigger ones as well. And so the giant ones you find anywhere where it's actually a farm for profit, right? Because you're consistently trying to blend varieties so that you get your own variety that brings you a lot of cacao seeds and some flavor. So this one here is very tiny, right? So chocolate comes from cacao, and we're gonna cut this one open. And
Sweet.
so this, it's called a cacao pod. You can call it a cocoa pod, right, or cacao fruit. It's all the same thing. And so out in the real farm, you would get a machete and cut it open. But we're just going to use a knife because this is also a very small one.
So it's easier to...
Super easy to crack open. And then in here, you have the seeds. And now you have the cocoa pod, which we throw away. We still, in the entire world, do not know what to do with the cocoa pod because it's not used for anything.
Yeah.
We need someone to come up with an idea for this. So here you have seeds. And so these seeds are enveloped by a white sweet pulp. So we call that cacao pulp.
Yep.
And the farmer would take this out and put it in a box, in a wooden box, about 500 kilos at a time, and ferment it for 6 days.
Okay.
And in those 6 days, the flavor is going to change, the color of it's going to change.
Is there a reason it's 5 days and not? I mean, do you have like different types of aging? Right.
So
I
it
think of like a
actually
whiskey,
depends.
right? Like you got a 6-year and a 12-year and I don't know, 5 days, 12 days, a month.
Different, yes, but different. So with cacao, longer fermenting does not mean better. It means maybe worse.
Okay.
And so it doesn't work that same way.
It's like a curve, right? Like,
Right, we're not aging it. What we want to do is ferment it. And every cacao, every variety will have its temperature zone that's ideal for it and time. And so maybe this one needs just 4 days. And so the producer has to watch the temperature of it and kind of monitor it the whole time. Because it's like it's alive and it's changing the entire time. This one maybe needs 4 to 5 days. Other varieties may need 6 to 8 days.
Okay.
But really never more than 10 days. Do you want to taste this?
Sure.
Okay. You
Is
can
it good
taste
or bad?
it. It's good, but
Okay.
don't bite it. Because if you bite it, it's really bitter and it'll be bad.
Okay.
So just grab what's right. Look, you grab one.
Okay.
And then you can put it in your mouth.
It's
Essentially, you can just kind of
Sign.
suck the pulp off, but don't bite it because the seed itself is really bitter.
It's nice.
It's really refreshing. It's like a pineapple juice, maybe like mango.
Yeah.
Very
I can place it.
tropical.
Yeah.
It's sweet and tropical. So we need the sugar here in order to begin this fermentation process, right? And so we ferment it.
Do you like clean it? Or you take the pulp off or you leave the pulp on when you dry?
No, you leave the pulp on.
Okay. Leave it here.
Yeah, you leave the pulp on.
It's an ashtray. It's like what you're using it for.
You leave the pulp on.
Excellent. Thank you.
You leave the pulp on because that helps with the fermentation. But in the market, there is cacao pulp and cacao juice. And so some people will actually put this in some kind of strainer or centrifugal machine, suck out some of the juice, and then that becomes another product. That's another product that can get sold on the market. Then it goes out into a deck to dry for about 15 days, depending on the weather. And then after that, it gets put into sacks and sent to me. And then my job is to start with the roasting.
Okay. And that gives us these?
So after it's been dried and...
is this roasted or this is dried?
This is dried. And so after it's been dried, it gets sent to me, and then my job is to roast it. So just like a coffee roaster, my job is to find the ideal roast for each cacao.
Okay.
And if I burn it, I get burnt chocolate. If I under roast it, I get chocolate with a lot of astringency, maybe some raw notes. And so the quality of the roast is really important. We tend to say that the roast is actually about like 30% of the final flavor of the chocolate.
Okay.
And so if you're a serious chocolate maker, you are going to control the roast. Most chocolate makers in the world do not roast their cacao. So that means that there are other roasters. So there are different steps.
Yeah.
So most chocolate makers, like the really big chocolate makers, will buy liquor, which is roasted cacao ground to a paste, and start at that process. So then I buy liquor, I put it in a machine, melt it, and then I add my sugar and milk or whatever. I start my process there with cocoa mass is what we call it also. It could be cacao liquor or cocoa mass. And so this is one part that differentiates bean to bar chocolate makers from the other industrial chocolate makers, is that we don't start with liquor, we start with cacao. And we control the roast, which means we control the final flavor. So if you don't control the roast, you're not controlling the final flavor of the chocolate. And so that's one of the main things that separates. So every time we, so there's a bean to bar association in Brazil, and one of the prerequisites is you have to roast your own cacao. If you don't roast your own cacao, you can't be part of our association. And so that's number one. And then, you know, what does it mean to be bean to bar? It means we control the whole process, but also we have a connection with the farmers, with the producers. We go visit the farms. We know the producers. We talk to them all the time.
Spent all these years.
All these years with them. We pay a premium for their cacao, so nobody pays more than we do for their cacao. But also we buy less, right? Because the big guys can come in and pay less because they're buying in bulk, 100 times more than what we do, right? And then we also want to keep our recipes really pure. And so we're not going to add a lot of fillings or things to like bulk it up. Like it's the purest chocolate you're ever gonna get. Some of it, most of it is 2 ingredients. It's cacao and sugar, right? Once you start getting to industrial chocolate, you know, you read the ingredients and it's just like a block like this of like what's in it. Chocolate doesn't need to have anything other than sugar to be chocolate. But obviously it can get more fun if you add other things, but 2 ingredients is normal for a bean to bar chocolate.
And you, one, you know, I think exhibit this, you have the name Mission, where they believe in sustainability. You also really focus on Brazilian ingredients and not just the cocoa, right? But also some of these other things. So can you talk a little bit about, maybe a little bit more about the sourcing process and the relationship that you've built with these farmers and these providers, but also about your focus on the use of some of these ingredients and maybe kind of some of the bars that more represent you. So you talked about kind of how you came up with the idea for Pão de Mel and Arroz Doce, but what are some of the other things that maybe represent Mission? And I'd love to show also some of the bars because your marketing background certainly shines through in how you present the bars. A couple people have said that they really just like looking at the bars that you produce.
So so one thing to note is that there's no such thing as bad cacao. And so my relationship with the farmers really start with understanding if they really want to make a better product. Because any farmer, any cacao can make a premium cacao. Any cacao can be a premium cacao. So there's no such thing as, oh, cacao that grows in that region is just not good, or cacao from this variety is not good. There's no such thing. The processing will dictate whether it's good or not. And so if I understand that the farmer is willing to put in the time to really measure, because they need to measure temperature, they need to understand, this year it was like this because it rained too much, or this year, like they need to really put some time and effort into understanding how we can get the certain cacao that makes good chocolate.
What's been the kind of the underlying commonality or trends that you see in some of the people that are interested in working with you and some of the other bean to bar chocolate makers? Like what is, you're going to some of these farmers who I assume are, you know, not exactly wealthy, and you're saying, hey, change this process and do this. What's that process like of negotiating with them and working with them, and what are the things that you see that maybe let you know that this is going to be a good partner, this is somebody I want to work with?
Yeah, so like many things in Brazil, there's a lot of cocoa producers, right?
Yeah.
So Brazil just has a lot of cocoa farmers. Like almost anyone that's from Brazil will be like, yes, I have an uncle in Bahia and he does cacao. I have an uncle in Pará and he does cacao. Like everyone almost knows someone that grows cacao. So there's just a lot of producers of cacao. And they also do a really good job of finding me. And so when I first got to Brazil, I would teach a lot of classes on how to make chocolate because
You still do?
I still do. So the craft chocolate movement, the bean to bar chocolate movement started in California. And I know that that's weird, right? It's a weird thing. But
Not if you know anything about California.
In Berkeley, California, there was a chocolate maker called Scharfenberger that started the bean to bar market industry in the world. And so there were two guys that decided that it shouldn't be a mystery how chocolate is made, right? Because prior to them, literally, no one knew how chocolate was being made, right? There was no videos, there was no YouTube, there was no TikTok. Like, you just didn't know how chocolate was being made. It was just appear packaged at any grocery store. And so they had this concept of like, no, we're gonna build a small chocolate factory. It doesn't have to be this industrial thing. And we're gonna do tours. We're gonna show people how we make chocolate. And so they did this on their own for like 10 years. Like, nobody else in the market existed except for them. And so you go there, you get a tour, you see cacao, you see it roasted, it turns into chocolate, and you're just like, wow, I never knew this was possible. And so then they ended up selling to Nestle. And when they sold to Nestle that year, about 10 other chocolate makers sprung up because they now knew that this product was never going to exist again. Because once it goes to the big guys, they need to, they need to make a profit. It's going to be something else. And so a lot of other chocolate makers sprang up from that. One of them was Dandelion Chocolate in San Francisco. And so I worked with them for a year before moving to Brazil. So between me selling my store and moving to Brazil, it was a 1-year hiatus. And I spent it with them, and I learned how to make chocolate with them. So when I came to Brazil, I already had a background of making chocolate bean to bar that no one in Brazil had. And people were eager. So people in Brazil kind of knew about the bean to bar movement. They wanted to start making chocolate, but they didn't have the training. And so when I got here, one of the first things I did was just offer chocolate tastings because I didn't speak Portuguese. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. So then I just decided to do tastings of chocolate tastings. And so people slowly found me, and my only thing was teaching them about good chocolate. And because Brazil didn't have it. It didn't exist yet. Good chocolate did not exist in Brazil, nor good cacao. And so I spent a lot of time teaching people how to taste and how to make chocolate. And that is kind of what led to me trying to be a company that wanted to make Brazilians proud of their own product. I could have imported flavors from the US and from Italy and taught them how this is, why this is so noble, right? Or why this is so much better than everything we have here. But I decided to teach Brazilians how to value what they had in Brazil.
Right, and I think it also probably caught on with some of the other movements that were also taking place in agriculture, right? So things like regenerative forestry and some of these other things that you're seeing in other parts of the, I don't know if we call it the food chain or whatever, right?
There's
but like
the craft
other
beer,
areas, there's other things
the
happening.
Cheese, the honey, everything is now about
Brazilian wine, right?
Brazilian
you wouldn't think of Brazilian wine. There's good quality. Brazil's this continental country with lots of things and lots of good ingredients that don't always get valued. And so that's very cool. It sounds like you caught the right moment as well in terms of being here.
I really wanted just to make sure that this didn't become a project for me where I was just exploiting, the farmers or anyone. Like I wanted to really make that cacao good, and I wanted to teach them that they could have a good product, right? And that they needed to demand a higher value for what they were getting. But we needed a good chocolate in order for that to happen, right? And so part of that is what led me to create all my flavors, right? So I thought, okay, I don't want to come in here as an American and tell them, oh, you should really use, peaches in this. So you really should use blueberries, or even cranberries. Like, those things are not part of the culture here. They don't grow here. They're not part of the culture. And even though they taste really good with chocolate, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be the American coming into Brazil telling them to use American products, because that's what I knew how to use. And so I decided that I was going to spend a lot of time researching Brazilian ingredients, Brazilian biomes, their regions. So I traveled a ton I watched a
be
million
amazing,
cooking shows about Brazilian food. And really, that's how I learned Portuguese. I learned Portuguese by watching Brazilian cooking shows, like for hours and hours, like years. I just watched Brazilian cooking shows. So my best Portuguese is culinary Portuguese for that reason. And so when I heard someone say cupuaçu, right? Like a fruit that doesn't exist anywhere else. And then I was able to source it from someone, and I decided, okay, we're gonna put cupuaçu on top of this chocolate bar, which had never been done before. If you can, right, because it also took that point of view of an outsider to say, wait a minute, this is really amazing, and if we put it this way, it works.
With this type of chocolate,
With this type of chocolate, and we cut it this way, it could work. And so I put cupuaçu on top of a chocolate bar, sent it to the United States. They went crazy for it. And then I did that with other Brazilian fruits and nuts. And that's really when Mission Chocolate was really started. Like that's when it actually hit the point where it defined what Mission Chocolate was going to be, which was a representation of Brazilian history, culture, gastronomy, its people, everything. And it was only going to stick to that, right? Because you can be, anyone can make a milk chocolate. Anyone can make a dark chocolate. Anyone can make whatever, a white chocolate. And so I really resisted just being bland to sell a chocolate. Like I needed to be, Mission Chocolate needed to be a company that represented a culture that I was beginning to understand because I'm an alien in Brazil. And so I really saw it from a different point of view. And I wanted to show that you can take the normal things that your grandma is using at her house and make it high quality and fancy and sell it to Americans, right? And they're gonna love it if you package it correctly.
And to the point you've been saying before, I think that there's been this perception that Brazilian things are not as good, historically. And if that comes from the colonial mentality or whatever it is, but there's tremendous potential, right? I always ask people about the different, phrases and sayings, which I will ask you later, but one of them is Brazil is the country of the future and it always will be, right? Because it never lives up to its potential, but it's in terms of some of the things that it has available, the natural ingredients, it's amazing. But I want to learn, this has all been really fascinating, I want to learn a little bit more about what it was like starting Mission and running that. So impact-based business, founded by women, mix of kind of wholesale, retail, training. Talk to me about what, I asked you how things are this morning when you came in and you said chaotic. So tell me a little bit about Mission as a business and what that's been like to build and run.
Yeah, I feel like Mission is still starting. Like
any good startup, it's always day one. Right? So,
it's still starting. Every day, it's something new that I didn't know that I should have known in the beginning. I mean, in the U.S., I had the business, right? Here in Brazil, I have to literally have like 2 accountants, 2 lawyers, 2 HR specialists, just to tell me what is right and wrong. And also,
and you can't skip steps on those things because it comes back to bite you later.
Yeah, but also I need one HR specialist to tell me what the other HR specialist told me that's wrong or right. So I need them to actually counter each other because nobody knows the answer. Nobody. And so I'm constantly feeling like I never have this. Like I'm never in control here. Number one mistake that I made starting was that I just depended like on one person, on one accountant. And he would tell me things and I'd be like, okay, we're gonna do it this way. And then we started to get big, so I needed to hire another accounting firm. And when they came in, they were like, everything's wrong that you've been doing. You need to do it this way. And so I was like, what do you mean? And so it was just a lot of backtracking, a lot of fixing broken issues.
Yeah.
And, then we decided about a year ago that this firm wasn't working because I needed more personal attention. So we switched to another accountant.
Everything
Same
is
thing.
wrong.
He's like, no, this should not have been done this way. And I'm just like, how is a business supposed to run here if the professionals don't know what is right and what is wrong? So there's just so much gray area of like, well, I would do it like this, right? But the correct thing is this, but this is the way for you to not get in trouble. So there's 3 ways to do everything.
Right, wrong.
And
to
I
not
just
get in trouble.
want to be able to fix, like I want to have the good skeleton to be able to build on that. And that has yet to come. Like this skeleton still is in pieces and shambles and broken. And so that's like the number one fear that I have, is that I'm trying to grow this business, but I don't have that foundation of this is right. Like it's never right. And then a new president comes in and it's like new rules again that we have to learn.
Right. Well,
And so when is the time?
You need to just kind of roll with it.
Do it. Just go for it. Which is also fine. That's what I've been doing. But when it comes time to grow, there's always this like thing of like, oh, you haven't been paying this, and it's now accumulated to $500,000 and so our money for growth is now going to pay things we didn't know we had to pay. And so this consistently happens, which is really scary, right? Yeah. But yet people are like, well, why are you in Brazil? It's like, because I love it. Like actually, it's very...
Talk about some of those positive aspects as well.
I actually love working with my team. Like and I'm saying this also in general for Brazilians, right? Like, because I have had a business in California and here I have something to compare it to. So Brazilians really like slowing down, right? You could take this as a good thing or a bad thing. But I think that this is why a lot of Americans are in Brazil, because Brazilians will sit down to have coffee, right? And they'll talk to you about whatever you want to talk about, as long as you want to talk. And they will have lunch. They will take their break for lunch. And they want everyone to take the lunch together so that we can talk. And so they've really taught me to slow down and really appreciate just the day-to-day life of being human. And that's what I appreciate most about being in Brazil.
That's amazing as a New Yorker to hear from a Californian who, for me, you are slowing down. So to now be saying the Californian got taught by the Brazilians to slow down, it's a whole other level.
Yeah, and at first it was annoying, and it really like stressed me out, because I was like, you need to work a lot faster, right? But they were like, oh, but we made cake. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm just like, you're right, let's sit down and have this.
We made cake, we gotta eat the cake.
And let me know how's your life going? Because at that point, the team works better, right? They're stronger, they appreciate what we're doing a little bit more. So I've learned to just slow down because of them. So I love working in Brazil because Brazilians really appreciate the downtime. They appreciate their vacation. They appreciate their vacation. They appreciate like the ferias, the 15 minutes a day to have coffee. Like they will sit down and they will have it.
Yeah,
and I
it's
feel
good for your business when people come and
I feel that as Americans, I just feel like we sacrifice a lot of these moments to like hit this goal of like, once I'm there, I can relax. Once I hit this point, then I can take an hour lunch. And we're consistently going for this.
We move the goal so we never get there.
Never there, right? We're never going to reach it. And I have, foregone 10 years of coffee breaks, by the time I know it. And so I'm in Brazil partly because of Brazilians, because they know how to slow down and appreciate the very tiny moments of every day, right? That's one. Number two is because we're in a city with 20 million people. Like I do not need to export chocolate to be successful in Brazil.
No, you live in a country.
I do not need to export. I do not need to sell outside of São Paulo to be successful. And where else can you say that this is true?
Very few places,
Right, very few places. And I'm near the source of my product. Right? Like I can get on a plane and be at a farm in 2 hours of where I source my cacao. If I was in the US, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so I love being close to the source. I love being in a country where there is unlimited amount of flavors and ingredients to work with, right? A lot of the ingredients that I work with And so one of the rules for mission is that we have to work with ingredients that are native to Brazil.
Yeah.
You know, they grow wild or they're grown by cooperatives or families. They don't cause damage to the environment. So there's like a list of things that we need to abide by. And in Brazil, that's very easy to do, right? Local and native, you don't grow wild, harvested
Small
by
farmers,
families, co-ops, and it really works out for us. And it's unlimited because even for Brazilians, like sometimes when I came up with my chocolate bar of umbu, everyone in São Paulo was like, what's umbu?
Yeah.
And so I had to teach Brazilians about Brazilian ingredients. And so then goes the whole story. It's like, oh, you know, nice you asked. And so I have to tell them where it grows, what it means, what it tastes like, what it looks like.
Back to your original mission of
Exactly.
getting people to engage with you, right?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be teaching only, you know, outsiders about Brazilian ingredients. So I'm actually teaching Brazilians about Brazilian ingredients. And you had asked about one flavor that didn't go well. There is so there's actually a lot of flavors. Like I think I have done more bad flavors than good flavors, you know.
Yeah,
but
so you learn not
the
to do
ones
it, right?
we've done good have stayed, right? But there are so many ingredients in Brazil, like acai, which I love, right?
Yeah,
As
not with
acai.
chocolate.
But when you mix it with chocolate, it becomes grainy, it becomes bitter, it becomes just a bad mouthfeel. Like I don't prefer it, and it's not something I want to do. I've tried to do also manteiga de garrafa, which is like aged butter.
Yeah,
which,
from like the Northeast, yeah. It's very
from the
like
Northeast.
Bahia food, yeah.
It's very gamey, like fatty and gamey. And when I put that in chocolate, it just didn't work. And so
Baião de dois, it's great. Chocolate.
right, and savory works, in chocolate it didn't. And so I have an infinite list of ingredients that I have tried. I have tried everything.
That must be fun too, right? Like, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, a little bit. It could
Sometimes
be
disappointing.
fun, right? And so in Brazil, I just don't think I would have access. I mean, Brazil has two of the most biodiverse forests on the planet, and so
not one, two.
yeah, the Atlantic rainforest and the Amazon rainforest, and so the amount of ingredients that can come from there that are still even unknown is limitless. And so I love being able to have that in my backyard.
Very cool. These chocolates have been here staring at me, so I do want to try them. What are some of the flavors that really stand for mission? And I'd love to put that in the context of what it's been like. You said you started in marketing, so building a brand in Brazil. So I'm interested in what that's been like as well.
Yeah, building a brand in Brazil also has been, it's been challenging and fun at the same time, because Brazil is not any other Latin American country. Like when Brazilians do something well, it is like world class. It's not, oh, it's nice for Brazil. It's literally like, it's the best in the world, right? And so Brazil has branding down and marketing. Like they're really good at it. They're really good at it. And so when I came in to start Mission Chocolate, you know, I am Berkeley, I am granola, crunchy, natural. Like I just wanted to do something very natural, like just recycled paper. And that's kind of what I wanted to do in the beginning. But it just wasn't going to compete with what was on the shelves with other products. And just with the expectation that Brazilians have with understanding that a product is gourmet. When a product is craft and gourmet, it's packaged very differently than if your mom made it at home, which was the granola crunchy that I was going for. It was like, this doesn't look professional enough. And so I needed to switch to something more sophisticated. And so that's when I decided to use the fauna and the flora that grows around Brazil as the example of the packaging. And so every bar that I have, you will have some kind of plant or pattern from a plant or nature. And so it's about showcasing the nature of Brazil.
Very cool. Can we try a few of these? I want to know kind of what is the quintessential mission chocolate and what I should be looking for in terms of kind of how the flavors play as well.
Yeah. So we're gonna try 4 chocolate bars. And our line, we have about 25 flavors, and we're gonna try 4 of them. So we like to group them in whites, milks, dark, and dark with an inclusion. So we'll try one from each category.
Okay.
So the first one that we're gonna try is
Do you have a standard 25, or do they cycle a little bit? You said you tried some things for Easter, right?
Yeah, so we have a standard only because it's easier for production purposes, but I would like to have like 50 flavors, but the production team can't handle that.
It's overwhelming.
Because
I wouldn't know which one to pick.
It's just too complicated to produce, to label, and to keep separate. And everything in marketing really says like you should have like 5 flavors, like not 25. And I am suffering at keeping it at 25.
Okay.
But really, when you give consumers too many options, right? They can't choose, and they just walk away.
Yeah.
So if I should have less than 25, but I want 50.
Gotcha.
Yes. So we're settling on 25
For now.
For now. So the first one we're going to taste is Wild Brazil.
Excellent.
And Wild Brazil is a 65% chocolate bar that's sourced from the wild. So it comes from cacao that looks like this. So it's cacao that doesn't belong to anyone. It just naturally grows in the Amazon rainforest. It comes from Acre, which is like the border of right with Bolivia. And it has a different profile than all the other cacaos that I work with because it's wild, and it's a tiny little bean. And it's special because it's wild, not because of the flavor profile. And so there's distinctions. People always ask me, what's the most expensive cacao in the world? The most expensive cacao is not the best cacao. Okay. It's just that it's harder to get, it's more rare, there's not a lot of it. And so just because it's rare doesn't mean that it tastes better.
I would actually think that because it's wild, the flavor would probably be a little bit more mixed and a little bit less standard. Right, because you're getting different beans from different places. I don't know, I could be wrong, but like this plant and this plant, they're gonna be different. They might give you, I would imagine each batch might be a little bit different. I don't know if that's true or not. You can tell me.
So because it's wild, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be very different at all times. They group so much of it together that the flavor pretty much stays consistent. The only thing that would change the flavor profile at this point is if they ferment and dry differently. Okay. But if they're consistently following a schedule, which they pretty much do, it kind of will always bring you the same flavor. Okay. All of it looks like this. All of it looks like this. And so if they're not collecting this and this and this and this and putting it together, because this doesn't grow there. Wild. This grows there. Yeah, gotcha. It's just this.
Cool.
And so let's taste it. I don't know how much chocolate you taste, but generally...
I eat chocolate. Yeah.
The reason chocolate is special and amazing is because cocoa butter melts with your body temperature. And so what you want to do really is like let the cocoa butter melt. So you don't bite and swallow, because you need the heat from your body to melt to help start the melting of the cocoa butter. And then, so I didn't bite it.
Leaving it
Don't bite it. It's starting to melt, right? First thing you taste is like acidity, right? So this has some acidity on the sides. And you want to do an opening and a closing of your mouth, breathing in and out through your nose, because you have 2 ways to smell. There's like inhaling and exhaling. In both ways, you smell different things. So you always want to inhale and exhale as you're tasting. So this is very, like the acidity is pretty high here, right? But it's not, it's not a lemon acidity. It's more like a red berries acidity, or like a jam acidity. Okay. It has the cocoa notes, almost like a little bit of a brownie. Yeah. And so as it moves along, you're gonna smell different things. Taste is just acidity, astringency, salty, umami. That's taste. Aromas is what we're really feeling, right? We're feeling the jam, the brownie. And it takes years for this training. So if you're like, I don't taste anything, it takes years to do this sort of training.
It tastes something. I don't know entirely what it is, but
and this training happens with anything. So I can probably get a a coffee taster in here, and they would find all these things.
Right.
I could get a tea person, I can get a beer person, and I can go into those other industries and wine and
Taste all
also
the different
follow it.
notes,
So
yeah.
once you're a taster, you're a taster for
Right.
almost everything. But it takes years of practice. It just doesn't come naturally.
Yeah.
It takes years, okay? So that was the first one. So Wild Brazil is one of our best sellers because people are really interested in just tasting a profile that they've never had before.
Yeah,
right?
it's a different type of chocolate.
Yeah.
It's a different chocolate than something that I'd go get at the supermarket normally.
Right.
At least the supermarket that doesn't sell your chocolate.
Right. And then wild cacao. So people right now are very interested in tasting products that are not farmed.
Right.
Right. That just are foraged. So in the US, we say more foraged than wild. But
Okay.
this is literally the wild, right? It's just like the Amazon rainforest where cacao is native to. So we know that this is the original cacao really that started thousands of years ago. And so it's just a profile that's not available for any other chocolate. And you could only get wild cacao in the Amazon rainforest. So wild cacao can only come from the Amazon rainforest. So there's no such thing as wild cacao in Africa. Wild
'Cause it was
cacao,
brought.
right, because it was taken there and planted. And sure, you could find a tree randomly growing anywhere, but it's not officially wild cacao. Wild cacao can only come from the Amazon rainforest,
Okay.
nowhere else. Because everywhere else, it was planted by someone.
Right. So this one is pão de mel.
This is pão de mel, which was my first milk chocolate.
Okay.
And you could smell it, like even just opening it, you can smell all
The
the
aroma.
pão de mel spices. And so I just take everything in a pão de mel, put it in a chocolate bar.
Awesome. And pão de mel is just like a traditional Brazilian sweet, right?
Like tea cake, I would call it.
I'm not the biggest pão de mel fan, although my wife and kids love them.
They're amazing. I can eat 500 of them in one sitting.
I'm also not like a pumpkin spice guy. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of
Definitely a pumpkin spice
person.
thing.
Okay. Yeah, it's got more of that like autumn.
It's what we call like warm spices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really my flavor, but I like it. It's delicious. Don't get me wrong. I like it. It just I would pick the wild Brazil over that one.
So here's another warm spice one.
Okay.
So the white one,
I'm suffering for my audience.
the white one is the rice pudding, rice that has cinnamon, and rice puffs. So take a small one. No, that's too big. You're not gonna like it.
Oh, I was going to take it.
So rice pudding is a white chocolate with rice puffs in it and
So I bite this
cinnamon.
one, or I still let it
You
melt?
can bite it. So once you have inclusions in it, it's about biting and eating. So you consider everything.
I like that one. That warm spice is different. I don't know. Just pão de mel doesn't. It's really not my thing.
Pão de mel has ginger, anise, cloves, nutmeg. So literally, I think nutmeg is what you're.
It's the nutmeg that I find.
I think
on
it's
my favorite.
nutmeg.
Yeah.
So this is just cinnamon and cloves and rice.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a white chocolate that looks like rice pudding.
Yeah, it's great.
And then our final one is the cupuaçu. And so the cupuaçu bar is a 70% dark chocolate, not from the wild cacao. So this chocolate is different than the wild cacao. This one comes from a farm in Bahia, totally different profile. And this is a profile that works for this inclusion, is what we call it, because it just really complements the acidity. So
you tried different chocolates from different places.
Right, so
to find this mix.
From one place. So this comes from Fazenda Camboa in
Right, but I'm
Bahia.
saying you tried different places until you found the correct place.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I tried many cacaos from many farms, and I tried many ingredients from many places, and this was like the blend, or this was the combination that works.
Excellent.
And cupuaçu was the bar that started my idea for the biomes project. And so cupuaçu grows in the Amazon rainforest. And I decided Brazil has 6 biomes. And I decided that I wanted a bar to represent each biome. And so we have a guava bar that represents the Atlantic rainforest biome. We have the umbu bar, which represents the Caatinga biome, which is the desert.
Okay.
And then there's the Cerrado, which is like the dry, arid, and that's the Baru bar. And the orange bar. So then the orange bar also represents the Atlantic rainforest.
Okay.
And that together forms like what we do a little box, we call the biome box,
Very
which kind of tells people that Brazil is not one place, right? When people think of Brazil, they think, oh, it's Rio de Janeiro. And it's
So many places.
not Rio de Janeiro, right? But most people also don't know that Brazil has a desert, right? They have like swamplands, they have a desert, they have a prairie, they have many other regions that's not Rio de Janeiro or that's not tropical.
Right. It's not the Amazon or...
Yeah, and so this is just a way for us to teach people that there's different climates and different regions.
Awesome.
And so Brazilians, or in the Amazon rainforest, they would take the cacao, they would suck on the seed because the pulp is nice and juicy and fresh, and then they would throw the seed away. Somehow they figured out that they can trade this up, Central America, up to almost, lower Mexico, and that they there wanted seeds. And so then they collected them, took them out there, traded it for whatever, gold, feathers, furs. In Mesoamerica, which is what we call that region, so Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, lower Mexico, they were already using the metate, which was a volcanic stone rock, where they would put corn to make tortillas, where they would put chilies to make salsas. Every kitchen in Mesoamerica has a metate, like this was their KitchenAid, like this did everything. And so it wasn't a big jump to put cacao on it, grind it, and it would melt, and then they would put it in water and drink it. Mesoamericans didn't have any stimulants. Brazilians, South Americans, already had guaraná and mate. And so those are stimulants that they were already consuming. Up in Mesoamerica, there were no stimulants. They didn't have the coffee, they didn't have anything that was stimulated. And so when they had cacao, which has caffeine, it has theobromine, it's like so energizing, they just fell in love with it. There was nothing that they could compare it to.
Thank you for sharing those chocolates. They were always delicious. Arcelia, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for teaching me about chocolate and letting me taste some of this stuff. I'm going to eat more when we're done. But I always like to ask my guests at the end, what does the expression Brazil is not for beginners mean to you?
I think being from California, I have seen the rags to riches. Any immigrant can come, work hard, get a car, buy a house, send their kid to college. Brazil is not that. Brazil is, you have to already come with a really strong foundation, right? Financially, or backing community people in order to actually try something. Because you need to be able to fall back on something, because there's going to be so many mistakes. You're going to make 1,000 mistakes, and you need to be able to have the resources to bounce back. And I just feel that it's not for beginners if you're starting at zero. It's for beginners if you already have some kind of experience behind you.
Okay, so specifically for gringos, it's going to take a while to figure stuff out.
They're never going to figure stuff out.
Right.
You're never going to figure it out. It's more like you need to just be prepared to fail. You really need to be prepared to fail, because you're going to fail.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not that your lack of knowledge, it's that the laws are always consistently changing as well.
Yeah. Coming back to our friend Nick, said starting a business in Brazil is like sailing a boat with no maps or weather information. And you just kind of point it in a direction and then turn and hope that it ends up right.
Right.
I also really like to ask at the end if there is like a Brazilian habit or expression that you really like, or that, you know, caught your attention being here as a foreigner, right? So a couple examples I always use. One is when my wife was pregnant, everybody would touch her belly, which is a complete no-no in the US. You would never do that. But here, your stomach belongs to the community. Your kids come up to me all the time and like rub my kid's hair, and it's like natural. A person on the subway in New York touched my kid's hair, like I would not be okay. But also like expressions, like I mentioned the one before, you know, the Brazil is the country of the future, or like my daughter these days is, I've been repeating this on the most recent episodes, but she eats a lot, so ela é bom de garfo, right? She's good with a fork. So I don't know if there's any expressions or any habits that you notice that are just like very Brazilian.
For sure. I think that the kid and the pregnancy thing is, I think, what hits me the hardest, because that's what I'm the most exposed to, right? Is I have 3 children, and so I've had them all in Brazil. And so for me, one that my daughter said the other day was, can you give me cariño? And she said it exactly like that, because there's no translation, right? Like there's no, can you give me affection, or can you give me love? I don't really know what it really translates to, right? Like she's asking me to pet her, essentially. But it doesn't translate, but it's more like, can you give me cariño? So I love that saying.
That was a great
And
one.
then the other one, it's like the colo, right? Like the moms, what's the translation? I don't know. It's like a mom's hug, a mom's womb, a mom's warmth. Like this word doesn't exist also, right, in English. And so it's like, to me, that's like the best. So it really does relate to like parenting and motherhood, because those are the ones that like affect me the most.
On a regular basis. I love it. Those are both very good ones. The colo comes up a lot in my house. Arcelia, this was awesome. How can people reach you? How can they come? Obviously, they should come to your store. Where is it?
So in São Paulo, we have a cafe store that people can come in, have coffee, hot chocolates, baked goods, and buy the chocolate. And in the US, we have many distributors. And so you can just Google Mission Chocolate California or Mission Chocolate New York, and you'll see who is selling our products online.
Awesome. And do you have like an Instagram or anything like that that people should pay attention to? Or
yes, you can find me anywhere online as Mission Chocolate. So Instagram Mission Chocolate, Facebook Mission Chocolate, TikTok Mission Chocolate, YouTube Mission Chocolate, all of it.
And you do quite a few videos these days, you were saying.
Yeah, I do a lot of educational videos. I get a lot of inquiries from all over the world about how to make chocolate. And what I decided to start doing is just make a video about it and tell people, go to the video. And if you have any other questions, just let me know.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you will try some Mission Chocolate.
Thank you.